Welcome to The Quiet Biographer, where we explore brilliant minds through whispered stories, designed for sleep. Breathe deeply. Let your mind soften. Drift into tonight's tale. Dim the lights. Find your most comfortable position, and let this quiet voice carry you toward rest. Tonight, Elon Musk. Not the headlines, the patterns, the systematic thinking behind building impossible things. If you drift away, perfect. If you stay awake, equally perfect. You're here to rest. If this helps you sleep, tell me where in the world you're listening. Give it a like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely find rest here. Now, breathe in and out. Close your eyes. Let's begin. How does someone build the future? Right now, above your head, 3,000 satellites orbit in silence. One company. Didn't exist 20 years ago. Right now, electric cars move without sound. Millions of them. 20 years ago, they were toys. Right now, rockets land themselves. Returning from space, someone built this. Someone who started reading encyclopedias in a South African library. This is about Elon Musk, but not about genius. About patterns anyone can learn. Breathe deeply now. Whether you're listening closely or already drifting, both are right. Let your body settle. Let the story carry you. Let's discover how the future gets built. Chapter 1. The Boy Who Read. The year is 1981. The place is Pretoria, South Africa. A small boy sits in the corner of a public library. Completely still, absorbed in a book. He's 9 years old. His name is Elon. He reads the way other children breathe, automatically, constantly. 10 hours a day when he can manage it. Science fiction mostly. Asimov's Foundation series. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Stories about civilizations rising and falling. About individuals who change the course of history through understanding systems. But he doesn't just read fiction. He reads the Encyclopedia Britannica, all of it, every volume, cover to cover. When adults ask why, he doesn't have a good answer. He'd simply run out of other books. Most children retain perhaps 10% of what they read. Elon retains nearly everything. Not through special technique, through obsession, through reading the same passages until patterns emerge. Until he understands not just what is written, but why it's written that way. He's building something, though he doesn't know it yet. An internal model of how things work. Physics, chemistry, engineering, economics, history. He's learning that reality follows rules, that systems have patterns, that if you understand the patterns, you can predict behavior, and if you can predict behavior, you can design outcomes. This pattern, reading to understand systems, understanding systems to build things, will define everything that follows. But first, there's school. School is difficult. Not academically, that's easy, socially. He's small for his age, awkward. His mind works differently than other children's minds. He takes things literally, misses social cues, doesn't understand why people say things they don't mean. The other children sense this difference. Children are efficient at identifying outsiders, at sensing who doesn't belong. The bullying is severe, more than teasing. There's physical violence. One incident puts him in the hospital. He's small, vulnerable, unable to defend himself effectively. His body hasn't caught up to his mind yet, and his mind, vast as it is with encyclopedia knowledge and science fiction scenarios, offers no map for navigating schoolyard hierarchies. So he retreats deeper into books. In books, violence follows logic. Heroes overcome obstacles through intelligence and careful preparation. Problems have solutions. Understanding leads to capability. The real world seems arbitrary by comparison, chaotic, governed by social rules that make no sense and shift without warning. But physics doesn't change. Mathematics doesn't change. The principles of rocketry and economics and energy systems, these are stable, reliable, comprehensible. If you understand them deeply enough, you can use them. This is where something crucial forms, not a personality trait, a methodology. When reality is painful and arbitrary, but systems are logical and comprehensible, you begin to trust systems more than people. You begin to see the world not as a social space, but as a design space. And if the world is a design space, it can be redesigned. His father is an engineer. Electromechanical, the house has a workshop. Elon spends hours there, taking things apart. Radios, motors, cameras, understanding how they work, how each piece contributes to function, how the system produces outcomes. He builds too. Small things at first, circuits, simple machines. Later, explosives. He nearly blows off his fingers experimenting with rocket fuel in the backyard. This is learning through building, through failure, through iteration. Read, understand, build, test, fail, understand failure, build better. This loop will repeat thousands of times across decades, at scales ranging from hobby rockets to orbital launchers. By age 12, he's programming. He teaches himself BASIC from a manual that comes with a computer his father brings home. The manual says the course takes 6 months. Elon finishes it in 3 days. He writes a space-themed video game called Blastar. Simple by professional standards, but functional. He sells the code to a magazine for $500. This is significant. Not the money, the realization. Code is pure creation. You type instructions and behavior emerges. The computer does exactly what you tell it to do. No politics, no social navigation, just logic and syntax and outcomes. If you understand the system, you control the system. He's 13 when he decides he needs to leave South Africa. Not someday, soon as possible. The reasoning is characteristically systematic. He reads about where innovation happens, where technology companies form, where the future is being built. 3 places dominate: United States, Canada, Europe. United States requires difficult immigration paths. Europe is culturally distant. Canada has straightforward immigration, and his mother was born there, giving him citizenship claim. So, Canada, then United States. The path is clear. He doesn't ask permission. He doesn't wait for circumstances to align. He identifies the optimal path and commits to it. At 17, he leaves. One-way ticket to Montreal. He has a backpack, some clothes, about $2,000. His mother's cousin's address, though the cousin has moved and doesn't live there anymore. He sleeps in a youth hostel, picks up odd jobs, cuts logs in the wilderness for $18 an hour, shovels grain in silos, nearly suffocating in grain dust. It's hard work, physical work, nothing like reading encyclopedias in libraries. But there's a clarity to it. You do the work, you earn money. You save money, you buy options. You buy options, you can make next moves. Everything is system and sequence. Even poverty is just a state with inputs and outputs. Change the inputs, change the state. After a year of odd jobs, He enrolls at Queen's University in Ontario, studies physics and economics. Not because they're prestigious, but because they're fundamental. Physics tells you what's possible. Economics tells you what's achievable. Together, they let you identify opportunities others miss. He transfers to University of Pennsylvania after 2 years. Double major, physics and economics. The combination is unusual but logical. Most people choose one or the other, science or business, technical or commercial. Elon sees them as complementary languages describing the same reality. You need both to navigate effectively. He reads voraciously throughout university, not just coursework, everything. Biographies of industrialists, history of technology, philosophy of science. He's still building that internal model, adding layers, connecting systems. By graduation, he has a framework, not conscious exactly, not articulated, but operational. The world is understandable. Systems have patterns. Patterns can be learned. Learning enables building. Building changes outcomes. And there's something else forming, something bigger than methodology, a sense of what matters. He's read enough history to see patterns in civilizational rise and fall. He's read enough science fiction to understand existential risks. He's studied enough physics to know what's technically possible. And he's developing a long view, not 5-year plans, 50-year horizons, century-scale thinking. What matters across that time scale? What problems, if solved, would meaningfully change humanity's trajectory? 3 things crystallize. Sustainable energy. Humanity runs on fossil fuels, which are finite and environmentally destructive. This has a predictable end state. Space access. Humanity on one planet is vulnerable to existential risks. Asteroids, supervolcanoes, eventually the sun's expansion. Single-planet species don't survive long-term. Artificial intelligence. Machine intelligence will eventually exceed human intelligence. How that transition happens determines everything that follows. These aren't fashionable causes in the mid-1990s. They're not obviously profitable. They're not even generally accepted as urgent. But they're logically necessary if you think long-term. Elon doesn't talk about these things much during university. They're forming quietly, underneath. First, he needs to learn how to build things, how to create companies, how capital works, how to move from understanding to implementation. For that, he needs to enter the game. In 1995, he's accepted to a PhD program at Stanford in applied physics and materials science. It's prestigious. It's the logical next step academically. He attends for 2 days. Then he drops out. Not from lack of interest, from urgency. The internet is emerging. Netscape has just gone public. Browser technology is making information accessible to everyone. The world is about to change very quickly, and change creates opportunity. But only if you move now, not after 5 years of graduate study, now. So he drops out. He and his brother Kimball start a company called Zip2. It's a software company providing business directories and maps for newspapers. Early web infrastructure. This is 1995. No roadmap for internet companies exists yet. No established playbooks. Everything is experiment and iteration. They work from a small rented office. Sleep there to save rent money. Shower at the YMCA. Write code 18 hours a day. The code Elon writes is functional but inelegant. He's not a naturally gifted programmer. He's a determined one. He makes it work through sheer persistence. Zip2 grows. Not smoothly, painfully. with constant funding stress and technical challenges and partnership conflicts. But it grows. In 1999, Compaq acquires Zip2 for $307 million. Elon's share is $22 million. He's 27 years old. Most people would retire, or at least rest. Elon immediately starts another company. This one is called X.com. It's an online bank, email-based payments, financial services through the internet. The idea is straightforward. Money is information. Information moves through networks. Therefore, money should move through networks as easily as email. Banks are slow to see this. They're optimized for physical infrastructure, branches, vaults, paper. But information-based money doesn't need physical infrastructure. It just needs secure data transfer and trust systems. X.com competes with a company called Confinity, which has a product called PayPal. After initial competition, they merge. The combined company eventually takes the PayPal name. The vision expands, not just payments, financial infrastructure for the Internet age. Again, it's difficult. Technical challenges, fraud problems, regulatory complexity, management conflicts. But again, it works. In 2002, eBay acquires PayPal for $1.5 billion. Elon's share is $165 million. He's 31 years old. He now has capital. Not small capital, serious capital, enough to fund almost any venture. And he knows what he wants to fund. Not another internet company. Not another incremental improvement. The big problems. The civilizational scale ones. The ones he identified years ago while reading encyclopedias in a library in Pretoria. Sustainable energy. Space access. The future of consciousness. These aren't easy problems. They're not obviously profitable. Most people would say they're impossible for startups. But Elon has learned something through Zip2 and PayPal. Hard problems are less crowded. If something is obviously profitable, smart people are already doing it. Competition is fierce. Margins compress. But if something is important and hard and seemingly unprofitable, you have space to work. And if you can solve it, you don't just build a company. You build an industry. So in 2002, he starts thinking seriously about rockets, not as hobby, as business, as civilizational necessity. He begins reading rocket engineering textbooks, propulsion physics, materials science, orbital mechanics. He's doing what he's always done. Building an internal model. Understanding the system deeply enough to see what's actually possible versus what people assume is possible. And he finds something interesting. Rockets aren't expensive because of physics. The physics is well understood. The engineering is mature. They're expensive because of industry structure. Because they're built like aircraft. Use once, throw away. Because government contracts incentivize cost-plus billing. Because nobody has seriously tried to optimize for reusability and cost. This is a design problem, not a physics problem. And design problems can be solved. The boy who read encyclopedias is about to build rockets. The boy who was bullied for being different is about to attempt something most aerospace engineers consider impossible. The boy who learned that systems have patterns is about to redesign an entire industry. But first, he needs to understand failure. Because before SpaceX succeeds, it will fail. Dramatically, repeatedly, expensively. And those failures will teach him more than any encyclopedia ever could. Let your breathing slow. Let your body sink deeper into rest. We've seen where patterns begin. In libraries, in loneliness, in systematic reading and obsessive understanding. Next, we'll see where patterns lead, to rocket launches, to factory floors, to infrastructure that doesn't exist yet. But for now, just rest. The information is integrating. The patterns are settling. Nothing more to do but breathe and drift. We'll continue soon. But for now, just rest. Chapter 2. The Physics of Money. Money is information about resource allocation. Most people don't think about it this way. They think about money as security, as status, as something to accumulate and protect. Elon thinks about it as fuel, as a tool for converting ideas into reality, as something that only matters if it's moving toward something that matters. This distinction is important. It explains almost everything that follows. It's 2002. Elon has $165 million from the PayPal sale. By conventional standards, he's set for life. He could retire at 31, manage investments, live comfortably forever. Instead, he allocates the capital like someone solving an optimization problem. Not, how do I preserve this wealth? But, what's the highest value use of these resources across the longest time horizon? The answer comes from the framework he's been building since childhood, the one formed by reading encyclopedias and science fiction, the one refined through building companies. 3 problems matter civilizationally: sustainable energy, space access, artificial intelligence. He doesn't have expertise in any of these fields, not formal expertise. No degrees in aerospace engineering or battery chemistry or machine learning. But he has something else: the ability to learn systems quickly, to identify what's actually hard versus what's assumed to be hard, to see where physics allows something but industry structure prevents it. And he has capital. Capital is stored optionality. It buys time. It buys talent. It buys the ability to attempt things that might fail. So he begins. In 2002, he puts $100 million, most of his wealth, into SpaceX, a rocket company, starting from nothing, competing against Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and nations with 50-year head starts. In 2004, he invests in Tesla Motors, not founding it, that's a common misconception, but leading the Series A funding round, $7.5 million. The company has no factory, no car, just a vision to make electric vehicles desirable. In 2006, he co-founds Solar City with his cousins, solar energy installation, making sustainable energy accessible, $10 million invested. Let's pause on this. 3 massive capital commitments. 3 industries considered essentially impossible for startups: rockets, cars, energy infrastructure. Any rational advisor would call this insane. Starting one of these companies is ambitious. Starting 3 simultaneously is madness. The failure rate for automotive startups is nearly 100%. The failure rate for space startups is literally 100%. No private company has ever successfully reached orbit, and Elon isn't diversifying risk. He's concentrating it. All his capital, all his time, all his reputation. This violates every principle of conventional investment strategy. But conventional investment strategy optimizes for preservation and modest returns, for not losing what you have. Elon is optimizing for impact across decades, for changing the boundary of what's possible, and for that, you need different math. Here's the logic he uses. If humanity needs sustainable energy and space access to survive long term, And if there's even a 10% chance these companies can meaningfully accelerate those outcomes, then investing everything is the rational choice. Because the alternative, keeping money safe while civilization doesn't solve these problems, leads to certain bad outcomes eventually. Better a 10% chance of meaningful impact than 100% chance of comfortable irrelevance. This is probabilistic thinking. Not guarantees, but expected value across long horizons. Most people optimize for certainty in short time frames. Elon optimizes for probability of impact across civilizational time scales. The difference produces completely different decisions. Let's follow the rocket story first, because it teaches something important about how he converts capital into capability. In 2001, before selling PayPal, Elon becomes interested in Mars. Not abstractly, practically. What would it take to establish a human presence there? He starts reading. Rocket propulsion, orbital mechanics, life support systems, in situ resource utilization. He joins the Mars Society, attends conferences, talks to aerospace engineers. The consensus is clear. Mars is technically possible but economically impossible. Launch costs are too high. Rockets cost $50 to $500 million per launch. You throw them away after one use. At those prices, Mars is a fantasy. But Elon looks at the physics, the energy required to reach orbit, the material costs of rocket components, aluminum, titanium, carbon fiber, propellant. When he adds up raw material costs, they're about 2% of typical launch prices. 2%. The other 98% is labor, overhead, profit margins, and industry structure. This is startling. If materials are 2%, then the problem isn't physics. It's economics and design. What if you could build rockets the way you build cars? With vertical integration, with rapid iteration, with reusability. Airlines don't throw away aircraft after each flight. Why do we throw away rockets? The standard answer: rockets undergo extreme stresses. Reusability is technically impossible or economically impractical. But is that actually true? Or is that what people believe because it's what's always been done? First principles. What does physics require? What does economics allow? What constraints are real versus assumed? This distinction between real constraints and assumed constraints becomes central to everything SpaceX does. In June 2002, Elon founds Space Exploration Technologies, SpaceX. The goal is explicit from day one: reduce space access costs by 10 times, eventually 100 times, make Mars economically feasible. He could have hired established aerospace companies to build rockets for him. That's what Jeff Bezos does with Blue Origin initially, contracting with traditional firms. Elon takes the opposite approach: vertical integration. Build everything in-house. Because aerospace companies are optimized for cost-plus government contracts, not cost reduction. Their incentive structures point the wrong direction. If you want 10 times cost reduction, you can't use suppliers optimized for maximizing cost. So SpaceX will build engines, avionics, structures, software, everything. This is considered insane. Aerospace is complex. It takes decades to develop institutional knowledge. You can't just start from scratch. But Elon has learned something from PayPal. Institutional knowledge can calcify into institutional assumptions. Sometimes starting fresh, without legacy constraints, enables solutions incumbents can't see. He begins hiring. not the aerospace industry's most experienced people. Young engineers, talented, hungry, willing to work insane hours. People who don't know what's impossible. He moves the company to Los Angeles. Cheap warehouse space near the airport. No fancy campus. No corporate structure. Just open floor plan and engineers building rockets. The early team is tiny, fewer than 30 people at first. They're designing the Falcon 1, a small rocket. 2 stages, liquid oxygen and kerosene propellant. Simple by modern standards. But no private company has ever reached orbit. Money flows out fast. Designing rockets, building test stands, hiring talent, renting facilities. By 2006, SpaceX is ready for the first launch. 4 years from founding to launch attempt. Extremely fast by aerospace standards. The rocket is on Kwajalein Atoll in the Marshall Islands, a small island in the Pacific. U.S. military test range, middle of nowhere. The launch is scheduled. Media watching. The rocket represents everything Elon has bet on. Whether private space access is possible. Whether you can start a rocket company from nothing. Whether first principles thinking works in the real world. The first 3 launches fail, each one differently, each one teaching different lessons. First launch, March 2006. Fuel line corrosion. 25 seconds of flight, then fire. The rocket tumbles. Total loss. A materials problem. Corrosion not anticipated in ground testing. Real flight environments teach lessons simulations miss. Second launch, March 2007. Oscillation. The rocket clears the pad this time. First stage performs perfectly. Stage separation occurs. Second stage ignites. Then the second stage starts spinning. Control is lost. A dynamics problem, unexpected vibration modes. Third launch, August 2008. Stage collision. First stage perfect. Stage separation clean. Second stage ignites and climbs. Then, 3 minutes into flight, the first stage recontacts the second stage. They collide. The rocket breaks apart. A staging problem. Residual thrust pushing the separated stage back into the flight path. 3 launches, 3 failures, 3 different root causes. This is information. Not just setbacks. Each failure reveals something. Materials behavior under flight conditions. Control system responses to unexpected dynamics. Stage separation margins required for safe flight. The team isn't just trying harder. They're understanding deeper. Money is running out. Elon has spent his entire PayPal fortune. He's borrowed money to keep going. He's personally broke. Tesla is also failing simultaneously. We'll get to that. Most people would quit. Cut losses. Admit defeat. But Elon has 1 more launch worth of funding. 1 more rocket already built. Parts for a 4th launch assembled. He has a choice. Shut down. Or attempt a 4th launch on borrowed money and systematic improvement. He chooses the systematic approach. Between the 3rd and 4th launches, the team works with intensity bordering on desperation. Every system reviewed. Every failure mode analyzed. Every process improved based on what the 3 failures taught. They are synthesizing lessons, applying all 3 failure analyses simultaneously. Better materials, better control algorithms, better staging procedures. 4th launch, September 28, 2008. The date matters. This is during the financial crisis. The economy is collapsing. Credit markets frozen. Raising additional funding is impossible. This launch either succeeds or SpaceX is finished. The team is on Kwajalein. Elon is there. Everyone who's worked 60, 70, 80-hour weeks for years Watching their work explode 3 times is watching. The rocket lights, the thrust builds, liftoff, first stage burns, stage separation, second stage ignition, climbing through the atmosphere, trajectory nominal. 8 minutes after launch, the second stage shuts down on schedule. Falcon 1 has reached orbit. First private liquid-fueled rocket to reach orbit ever in history. The control room erupts, people crying, hugging, years of failure converting to success in 8 minutes. But the significance is bigger than one rocket reaching orbit. It proves the model, that private companies can do what only nations could do, that vertical integration works, that rapid iteration works, that first principles thinking, applied systematically, can solve problems everyone said were impossible. More importantly, it proves something about failure. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of the process. You fail, you learn, you improve, you try again. The question isn't, will you fail, but can you afford to fail enough times to learn? This becomes central to how SpaceX operates going forward. They build test vehicles expecting them to explode. They launch prototypes knowing they might fail, because each failure teaches, each lesson compounds. Traditional aerospace minimizes failures by moving slowly, testing exhaustively, launching rarely. Space maximizes learning by moving fast, testing in real environments, failing quickly when necessary. Different optimization target, not never fail, but learn faster than you run out of resources. The 4th launch success saves the company. NASA awards SpaceX a commercial resupply services contract. $1.6 billion to deliver cargo to the International Space Station. This injects capital, provides credibility, allows continued development. But Elon isn't satisfied with reaching orbit. That was step 1. The real goal is reusability. Because reaching orbit isn't enough. Reaching orbit cheaply is what matters, and cheap means reusing rockets. The next decade becomes a systematic march toward landing rockets and reusing them. First attempts fail spectacularly. Rockets crash into drone ships, explode on landing pads. The failures are public. They become memes. But each failure teaches. Landing legs design improves. Control algorithms improve. Engine restart procedures improve. Then, December 2015, Falcon 9 launches satellites, returns, and lands vertically at Cape Canaveral, standing upright on its landing legs like something from 1950s science fiction. Reusable orbital rockets, not theoretical, real. Today, SpaceX lands boosters routinely. Some have flown 20 times. Launch costs have dropped by factors of 10. Starship, the fully reusable system currently in development, aims for another order of magnitude reduction. This is first principles thinking, applied across 20 years, converting capital into capability, using failure as information. But here's what matters for understanding how Elon thinks about money. He didn't invest $100 million in SpaceX expecting financial return. Private space companies had never been profitable. The expected value in monetary terms was likely negative. He invested because the expected value in impact terms, making humanity multiplanetary, was enormous, and because he understood something subtle. Money is potential energy. It sits inert until converted into action. The question isn't, how do I preserve it, but what's the highest value conversion? For most people, highest value means security, comfort, status. For Elon, highest value means changing what's possible. This explains why he simultaneously funds SpaceX, Tesla, and Solar City. Why he lives modestly despite paper wealth. Why he doesn't optimize for work-life balance or conventional happiness. He's optimizing for a different variable. Impact across the longest time horizon he can affect. This is neither good nor bad. It's a choice, a particular utility function. But it explains his decisions better than any other framework. Money is the fuel. The companies are the engines. The output is expanded possibility, and the process requires accepting that fuel will be consumed, that companies might fail, that personal wealth might disappear, because the alternative, keeping fuel in the tank, produces zero thrust. Let your breathing deepen. Let your body settle more completely. We've seen how capital becomes capability, how money converts to infrastructure, how failure becomes information. Next, we'll explore the simultaneous Tesla story, the near-death experience of 2008 when both companies nearly failed at once. But for now, rest. The patterns are integrating. The logic is settling into understanding. Nothing to do but breathe and drift. More soon. But for now, just rest. Chapter 3. The year everything nearly died. The year is 2008. Everything is failing simultaneously. SpaceX has launched 3 rockets, 3 explosions, $100 million burned. The 4th launch, the last one the company can afford, is scheduled for September. Tesla has produced exactly 0 cars for customers. The Roadster prototype costs more to build than customers will pay. The company is burning cash. Suppliers are threatening to stop shipments. Bankruptcy is weeks away. The global financial system is collapsing. Lehman Brothers fails in September. Credit markets freeze. Nobody is investing in anything, especially not unproven electric car companies or rocket startups. Elon's personal finances are devastated. Everything from PayPal went into the companies. He's borrowed against remaining assets. He's personally broke. And his marriage is ending. 5 children, a divorce proceeding, public criticism. The stress is crushing. This is the moment when most people would choose survival. Shut down one company to save the other. Declare bankruptcy. Start over. Elon chooses something different. He makes a decision that defines everything about how he thinks about resource allocation under extreme constraint. He splits his remaining money between SpaceX and Tesla, roughly equal amounts. $20 million into each, his last available capital. Not save the most promising company. Not preserve something for personal survival. Both companies get what they need to attempt one more thing. One more rocket launch. One more funding round attempt. If both fail, everything fails. But if both have a chance, even a small one, then that's the rational allocation. This is expected value calculation under existential pressure. Not emotional, not hopeful. Mathematical. Let's follow both stories simultaneously, because they're happening simultaneously, and the tension of parallel near-death experiences teaches something about how systems fail, and occasionally, improbably, survive. Tesla first. The company started in 2003, founded by Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning. They wanted to prove electric cars could be desirable, fast, beautiful, not golf carts. The plan was simple. Take a lightweight sports car chassis, the Lotus Elise, replace the engine with electric motors and batteries, sell it as a high-performance electric vehicle. Simple in concept, nightmarish in execution. Elon joined in 2004 as chairman and lead investor. Series A funding, $7.5 million. He's not involved in daily operations initially. That's Eberhard's role as CEO. But by 2007, problems are obvious. The Roadster is supposed to cost $65,000 to build, sell for $92,000. Instead, it costs over $100,000 to build. The company loses money on every car. The transmission doesn't work. It keeps breaking. Multiple redesigns fail. They eventually abandon the two-speed transmission for a single speed. Performance suffers, but reliability improves. Battery costs are higher than projected. Range is lower. Weight is higher. The Lotus chassis requires more modification than expected, so much that almost nothing remains of the original Lotus. Funding rounds keep happening. Series B, C, D, E. Each time, Elon invests more. Each time, the company needs more. By mid-2007, it's clear Eberhard isn't scaling as CEO. The board asks him to step down. He resigns bitterly. Lawsuits follow. The founder's story becomes complicated and contentious. Zeev Drury becomes CEO temporarily, but the problems remain. Production hasn't started. Money is running out. The Roadster costs more than anyone projected. In October 2008, with the financial crisis in full catastrophe, Elon becomes CEO. Not because he wants the job, because nobody else will fund the company, and he can't let it die with so much invested. He's now running two companies, both failing during the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. Tesla needs money immediately. Payroll is due. Suppliers need payment. Without cash injection, the company dies in weeks. Elon tries raising a funding round. Every investor says no. The economy is collapsing. The automotive industry is seeking government bailouts. Nobody is investing in unproven electric car startups. He puts in his own money, borrows more, convinces existing investors to put in a little more, cobbles together enough to make payroll, delays suppliers, renegotiates terms, survives week to week. Meanwhile, SpaceX is attempting the fourth launch. Same timeline. September 2008. Financial markets in freefall. Both companies on the edge. The Falcon 1 rocket is on Kwajalein Atoll. The team has analyzed every failure, redesigned systems, improved processes, but there's no guarantee. 3 previous rockets exploded. This one might too, and if it does, SpaceX is finished. No more money for another attempt. Contracts will be canceled. The company will shut down. Elon is splitting time between Tesla in California and SpaceX in Los Angeles and mission control in Kwajalein, sleeping a few hours per night, living on stress and caffeine. The launch happens September 28th. 8 minutes later, Falcon 1 reaches orbit. First private liquid-fueled rocket ever. The success changes everything for SpaceX, proves the model works. NASA is watching. Within weeks, they award SpaceX the Commercial Resupply Services contract, $1.6 billion. SpaceX is saved, but Tesla is still dying. October 2008. The Roadster is finally in production. Barely. Delivering to customers. But the company is hemorrhaging money. Every car loses money. And worse, the global automotive market is collapsing. GM and Chrysler are seeking government bailouts. Ford is burning through reserves. New car sales are plummeting. This is the worst possible time to be an automotive startup. Elon needs to raise more money or Tesla dies. But who invests in car companies during automotive industry collapse? He approaches every investor he knows. Everyone says no. The risk is too high. The timing is catastrophic. Electric cars are niche. The company has no path to profitability. He asks friends, family, anyone. Most say no. His brother Kimball invests what he can. Not much. A few other believers put in small amounts. It's not enough. Christmas Eve, 2008. Tesla is days from bankruptcy. Payroll is approaching. Supplier payments are due. The company has no money. Elon is working to close a funding round, but it's December 24th. Financial markets are closed. Investors are with their families. The timing is catastrophic. The calls continue anyway. To existing investors, to anyone who might understand the mission, explaining how close Tesla is to figuring out production, how the technology works, how the Roadster proves the concept, how giving up now means all the prior capital and effort evaporates. Most decline. Some listen but say no. The risk is too high. The timing is impossible. The automotive industry is collapsing globally. Then, late on December 24th, a few existing investors agreed to a bridge round. Just enough to make payroll. $12 million. Not remotely enough to save the company long term, but enough to survive another month. Tesla makes payroll. Survives Christmas. This pattern repeats through early 2009. Funding crises every few weeks. Barely surviving. Elon putting in personal money he doesn't have. Borrowing from friends. Convincing believers to put in small amounts. People later ask why he didn't just let Tesla fail. Cut his losses. He'd saved SpaceX. That was worth billions eventually. Why risk everything on both? His answer is characteristically systematic. Too much was invested. The technology worked. The mission mattered. Giving up meant all that prior capital and effort was wasted. This is what economists call the sunk cost fallacy. You're supposed to ignore sunk costs. They're gone regardless. Future decisions should be based on future expected value, not past investment. But Elon's calculation includes a different variable. The probability that Tesla's technology and mission could still succeed. If that probability is non-zero, and if the company is close to breakthrough, then additional investment has positive expected value. He's not throwing good money after bad. He's completing what's 90% finished rather than abandoning it at the threshold of success. This distinction matters. Many companies should die. Their core assumptions are wrong. Their technology doesn't work. Their market doesn't exist. Tesla probably shouldn't have died. The core technology was working. The market need was real. It just needed time and capital to reach manufacturing scale. By mid-2009, the worst has passed. Not because Tesla is suddenly profitable, it isn't, but because the immediate death spiral is over. The Roadster is shipping. About 2,500 will be produced total. Each car loses money, but customers love them. They're fast. Gorgeous. They prove electric cars can be desirable. More importantly, the Roadster is a proof of concept. It demonstrates the technology works. It builds brand awareness. It attracts talent. And it provides the foundation for Model S, the real product. A sedan. Mass market pricing. This is where Tesla either becomes a real automotive company or remains a boutique maker of expensive toys. Development of Model S happens while Tesla is still nearly bankrupt. They're designing a new car while barely able to pay rent. It's insane. It's necessary. Because automotive companies require years of development before products ship. If they wait until finances are stable, competitors will move first. They have to design and build while surviving day to day. Elon is learning manufacturing, not from textbooks, from doing it. The Roadster production is teaching hard lessons about supply chains, quality control, manufacturing tolerances, assembly processes. Every problem is a lesson. Delayed suppliers teach you to vertically integrate. Quality issues teach you to control processes. Cost overruns teach you where money actually goes in manufacturing. By 2010, Tesla is still unprofitable but no longer dying. They've raised more funding. They're building a factory in Fremont, California, a former GM-Toyota joint venture plant. Massive space. They get it cheap because automotive manufacturing is contracting. Model S is in development. The design is beautiful. Engineering is solid. But taking it from prototype to production is where most automotive startups fail. Manufacturing at scale is completely different from building prototypes. When you're building 10 cars, you can handcraft solutions. When you're building 10,000, every process must be repeatable, reliable, fast. Tesla doesn't have expertise in mass manufacturing. They're learning as they go, and they're attempting something no automotive startup has successfully done in decades, bringing a new car company from nothing to production. In June 2010, Tesla goes public. The IPO raises $226 million, first American automotive company to go public since Ford in 1956. The capital provides breathing room, not comfort, not safety, just room to execute. Model S launches in 2012. The first deliveries are to customers who've waited years. The car is stunning, fast, functional, range of about 265 miles. It drives like a luxury sports sedan, not a golf cart. Reviews are overwhelmingly positive. Motor Trend names it Car of the Year. Consumer Reports gives it their highest rating ever, 99 out of 100. The market responds. Orders increase. The company is still not profitable. Automotive manufacturing is brutally capital-intensive, but they're on a path. A visible path from unsustainable to sustainable. This is the inflection point. Before Model S, Tesla could fail at any moment. After Model S, the question becomes not, will they survive, but can they scale? Different question, better question. Meanwhile, SpaceX is advancing rapidly. The Falcon 9, a larger rocket, successfully reaches orbit in 2010. Dragon capsule flies in 2010 and docks with the International Space Station in 2012. NASA contracts provide steady funding. SpaceX can invest in reusability research. The landing attempts begin, rockets trying to return and land vertically. Early attempts fail spectacularly. Rockets explode, but each failure teaches. By 2015, SpaceX successfully lands a booster. By 2017, they're reusing them. Both companies, which nearly died in 2008, are now reshaping their industries. But here's what 2008 taught that matters beyond survival. First, resource allocation under constraint. When you can't save everything, you calculate expected value and split resources to maximize probability of any success. Not comfortable, not safe. Optimal given constraints. Second, persistence is not about refusing to quit. It's about calculating whether continuing has positive expected value. If technology works and market exists and you're close, continuing makes sense even if it's painful. Third, failure modes differ. SpaceX's failures were technical. Rockets exploded, but the company could iterate. Tesla's failures were financial. They could build good cars but couldn't scale profitably. Different problems require different solutions. Fourth, timing compounds difficulty. Both companies facing existential crisis during economic collapse created correlated risk. But solving both simultaneously meant that success in one provided resources for the other. Fifth, nobody rescues you. If your companies are failing, you either fix them or they die. No bailouts for unproven startups. No safety nets. Just you, your resources, and your ability to solve problems faster than they multiply. This isn't heroic. It's not admirable or cautionary. It's just what happened. Someone decided that making humanity multiplanetary and accelerating sustainable transport mattered more than personal comfort or financial safety. And that person structured their life around those priorities. The cost was nearly losing everything. The benefit was keeping two missions alive that might not have survived otherwise. Whether that trade was worth it depends on your values and your time horizon. Personally, probably not. Civilizationally, possibly yes. This tension between personal well-being and civilizational impact runs through everything Elon does, and it's worth examining, not to emulate, but to understand. Because most people optimize for personal happiness and security. Some optimize for legacy and impact. Different utility functions produce different lives. Neither is correct. They're just different calculations about what matters. Let your body settle more deeply. Let tension release from muscles you didn't realize were tense. We've seen how systems survive existential pressure, how resource allocation works under constraint, how parallel crises create correlated risks. Next, we'll explore what comes after survival, how Tesla learned to manufacture at scale, how manufacturing becomes almost meditative when optimized correctly, how building physical things teaches different lessons than building software. But for now, rest. The patterns are integrating. Understanding is forming naturally. Nothing to do but breathe and drift into deeper rest. More soon. But now, just sleep. Chapter 4. Manufacturing as meditation. There's a Zen quality to manufacturing at scale that's rarely discussed. Each movement optimized. Each second saved across millions of units. The dance of robots and humans, materials and information flowing through space like choreography. Most people think of factories as loud, chaotic, industrial, and they are. But within that chaos, when properly designed, there's profound order, pattern, rhythm. Elon discovers this the hard way. It's 2017. Tesla is preparing to launch Model 3, the mass-market electric car. The car that will determine whether Tesla becomes a real automotive company or remains a niche luxury brand. Model S and Model X are successes. Beautiful cars. Expensive. About 100,000 sold per year combined. This is good for a startup. Not remotely enough to change the automotive industry. Model 3 is different. It's designed for volume. Target price, $35,000. Target production, 500,000 cars per year eventually. This is 50 times Model S production. The reservations prove demand exists. Within weeks of unveiling, over 400,000 people put down deposits. $14 billion in implied future sales. The market is ready. But wanting to produce 500,000 cars and actually producing them are completely different problems. Tesla has never manufactured at this scale. Nobody on the team has. They're attempting something extraordinarily difficult, ramping production faster than any automotive company in history. The plan is aggressive. Start to production in July 2017. reach 5,000 cars per week by end of 2017, hit 10,000 per week by 2018. Traditional automotive companies take years to ramp new models. They're conservative. They start slow. They work out problems systematically before increasing volume. Tesla doesn't have years. They have hundreds of thousands of customers waiting. They have competition developing electric vehicles. They need to scale fast or lose the window. So they plan for speed. Massive automation. Robots everywhere. Minimal human touch. The factory will be so advanced it's almost autonomous. This is the vision. Reality is different. Production starts July 2017. Target for the first quarter, 1,500 cars per week. Actual production, 260 cars total for the entire quarter, not 260 per week. 260 cars in 3 months. This is catastrophic. At this rate, the 400,000 reservations would take decades to fulfill. Customers are waiting. Competitors are watching. The stock market is punishing. Critics are gleeful. What's wrong? Everything. The over-automation doesn't work. Robots can't handle variations in parts. When something is slightly misaligned, robots stop. Humans can improvise. Robots can't. The battery module assembly line, the most automated part, is the worst bottleneck. It's supposed to run lights out, no humans required. Instead, it's constantly stopping. Workers are hand-assembling modules in a tent outside because the automated line can't keep up. Parts from suppliers arrive late or wrong. Quality control catches defects, sends parts back. Production stops waiting for replacements. Software coordinating the factory has bugs. Robots collide. Conveyor systems jam. The whole facility is supposed to flow like a symphony. Instead, it stutters like a broken machine. Elon realizes something fundamental. Over-automation was a mistake. Humans are underrated. In April 2018, he sends a company-wide email. Excessive automation at Tesla was a mistake. To be precise, my mistake. Humans are underrated. This admission is important, not for humility, though it is humble, for methodology. When reality contradicts theory, update theory. Don't defend mistakes, fix them. The fix requires being present. Elon starts sleeping at the factory. Not occasionally, regularly. He has a sleeping bag in a conference room. Sometimes he sleeps under desks, sometimes on the factory floor. This sounds dramatic. It's actually practical. To understand where bottlenecks occur, you must watch the system run. Not from spreadsheets. Not from reports. By standing on the floor, watching the line, seeing where flow breaks down. Manufacturing is physical. The problems are spatial and temporal. You can't solve them remotely. So Elon is there, walking the line at 2 a.m., watching robots, watching humans, watching where things slow down, where mistakes happen, where time disappears. The team works insane hours, 18, 20 hours per day, 7 days a week, for months. This is not sustainable, it's not healthy, it's not admirable. But it's what's required to learn fast enough, to iterate on processes quickly enough, to find and fix problems before the company fails. And they do fail. Constantly. Small failures. A robot arm moves too slowly. A part doesn't align. A sensor reads incorrectly. Paint doesn't cure properly. Each failure gets analyzed immediately. The team swarms the problem. They implement fixes within hours. Test. Iterate again. This is the SpaceX methodology applied to manufacturing. Fail fast. Learn fast. Improve fast. Traditional automotive companies batch their learning. They study problems carefully. form committees, issue reports, implement changes slowly. Tesla learns in real time. The feedback loop is minutes or hours, not weeks or months. Gradually, production increases. By mid-2018, they're making 2,000 cars per week. Still below target, still losing money on each car, but improving. Elon sets a public goal: 5,000 cars per week by end of June 2018. This is insane. They're at 2,000. Doubling production in weeks when they've been struggling for months. Analysts say impossible. Critics mock the target. The stock price reflects skepticism. But something is happening on the factory floor. The system is learning. Not just individuals. The system itself. Workers understand the flow now. They've identified every bottleneck. They've removed unnecessary steps. They've added people where automation failed. They've optimized motion, reduced waste, improved quality. The factory is becoming what it was designed to be. Not fully automated, but optimized. Human and machine working together, each doing what they're good at. The final week of June 2018, the team works around the clock, literally. Shifts run continuously. Elon is there the entire week. They build a second assembly line in a tent, a temporary structure outside the main factory. It's supposed to be short-term. It's not elegant, but it adds capacity. June 30th, midnight approaches. The counter shows 4,900 cars for the week. They're close. So close. The line keeps running. Every car matters. Each one assembled is proof the system works. Final count: 5,031 cars. They hit the target. By 31 cars. On the last possible day. The factory erupts. People crying again. Like SpaceX's fourth launch. Like every time impossible becomes actual through sustained effort. But this isn't the end. It's a threshold. Proof that Tesla can manufacture at scale. That the technology works. That the company can be viable. Production continues ramping. By late 2018, they're consistently making 5,000 per week. By 2019, 7,000. The system has learned. The workers have learned. The processes are refined. Model 3 becomes profitable. Not immediately. But by Q3 2018, Tesla posts its first profitable quarter in years. The margin is thin, but it's real. This proves the business model. Electric cars can be mass-produced profitably. The technology scales. The market exists. More importantly, it teaches lessons about manufacturing that apply beyond automotive. Manufacturing, when you understand it deeply, reveals 3 essential principles. First, flow is everything. Manufacturing isn't about equipment. It's about how material moves through space, how information moves through systems. Where does flow break down? Where does it stop? When flow is smooth, throughput is high and costs are low. When flow breaks, everything backs up. This is why Elon focuses obsessively on bottlenecks. The constraint determines maximum throughput. Improving non-bottleneck processes is useless. Only improving the constraint increases output. Identify the bottleneck. Focus all effort there. Once that's improved, a new constraint emerges. Focus shifts. It's systematic, almost algorithmic. Second, you can't improve what you don't measure. Tesla instruments everything. Cycle time, defect rates, throughput, downtime. Every metric visible in real time. This allows rapid iteration. Change something. Measure the effect immediately. Keep the change if it improves things. Revert if it doesn't. The feedback loop is minutes or hours, not weeks or months. Traditional automotive companies batch their learning. They study problems carefully, form committees, issue reports, implement changes slowly. Tesla learns in real time. It's the SpaceX methodology applied to manufacturing. Fail fast, learn fast, improve fast. Third, the ideal is human-machine collaboration. Machines excel at precision, speed, and repetition. Humans excel at judgment, adaptation, and problem-solving. The over-automation was a mistake because robots can't handle variation. When something is slightly misaligned, robots stop. Humans can improvise. The art is getting the balance right. Automate where consistency matters, where variation is low, where speed exceeds human capability. Use humans where judgment matters, where adaptation is required, where problems are novel. Getting this balance right is where manufacturing becomes almost beautiful. There's something almost meditative about optimized manufacturing. Watch a well-designed line. Material flows. Robots move in precise patterns. Humans intervene at exact moments. The rhythm is hypnotic. Each car moving down the line is identical in design but unique in execution. Each one assembled by the same process but with tiny variations. Each one the product of thousands of precise actions coordinated across time and space. It's beautiful in the way complex systems are beautiful. Not individual components, but how they interact. The emergent properties of well-designed processes. Elon discovers something during production hell. He enjoys manufacturing. Not the stress, not the 18-hour days, but the problem-solving, the optimization, the tangible results. Software is abstract. You write code, behavior changes, but nothing physical exists. Manufacturing is concrete. You optimize processes, cars emerge. Real objects. Touchable. Drivable. There's satisfaction in that. In converting raw materials into finished products. In seeing physical proof of improved systems. This appreciation for manufacturing shapes everything Tesla does subsequently. Gigafactories, massive production facilities, get built in Nevada, Shanghai, Berlin, Texas. Each one optimized further. Each one learning from previous iterations. The Shanghai factory goes from groundbreaking to production in under a year. Unheard of speed. They applied everything learned from Fremont, improved the design, streamlined the processes. Berlin and Texas factories introduce new techniques. Single-piece casting instead of multiple welded parts. Structural battery packs. Continuous improvement. Manufacturing becomes a competitive advantage. Not just what they build, but how fast they can improve how they build it. Traditional automakers change processes slowly. New model every 5 years. Production methods stable for decades. Tesla changes continuously. Weekly improvements. Monthly significant changes. Yearly major redesigns. This velocity of improvement is possible because they control the process. Because they measure everything, because they iterate constantly. It's the same methodology that landed rockets, applied to cars, and it works. By 2023, Tesla is producing about 1.8 million cars per year. From 260 in Q3 to 1.8 million annually. That's a 7,000x increase in 6 years. The company that nearly died in 2008 is now the most valuable automotive company in the world. Not because they make the most cars, they don't, but because the market believes they can scale further. Because they've proven they can improve faster than competitors. But here's what matters beyond Tesla. The lessons about manufacturing apply to any production system. Software deployment, content creation, service delivery. Anywhere processes convert inputs to outputs, identify bottlenecks, optimize flow, measure everything, iterate rapidly, balance automation and human judgment. Integrate vertically where speed matters. These principles scale. They work at any size, for any product. Manufacturing is often seen as old economy, factories, blue collar, not glamorous like software, but manufacturing is where ideas become real, where design becomes product, where possibility becomes tangible, and there's deep satisfaction in that conversion, in seeing materials become mechanisms, in watching optimized systems produce reliable outputs. This is what Elon discovered sleeping on factory floors. Not that he's superhuman, but that manufacturing, done well, is profound. It's applied physics. It's systems optimization. It's the interface where information becomes matter. Let your breathing slow further. Let your body become heavier, sinking deeper into rest. We've seen how systems scale, how optimization compounds, how physical processes teach different lessons than abstract ones. Next, we'll explore something bigger, how all these pieces connect, how electric cars and rockets and solar panels and tunnels all fit into a single vision, how someone thinks about infrastructure at civilizational scale. But for now, let the pattern settle. Let understanding form naturally in the background of awareness. Nothing to do, nowhere to go, just rest. The story continues, but for now, just breathe, just drift. More soon. But now, sleep. Chapter 5. The Network Effect. Step back for a moment. Look at the whole picture. Electric cars, rockets, solar panels, battery factories, tunnels, brain-computer interfaces. From outside, this looks scattered, unfocused. Like someone with attention deficit disorder jumping between unrelated interests. But there's a pattern, a deep one. Everything connects, not through personality, through systems thinking, through understanding how pieces fit together across time. This is what separates random activity from coherent vision. Not the individual projects, but how they relate, how each one makes the others possible, how together they form something larger than their sum. Let's trace the connections. Start with the core insight from 2001, the one that launched everything. Humanity faces long-term existential risks, asteroid impacts, climate change, supervolcanoes, eventually solar expansion. Any civilization confined to one planet eventually ends. This is not pessimism. It's probability over sufficient time. The solution? Become multiplanetary. Establish self-sustaining presence on Mars. Create backup for consciousness. Insurance against single-point failure. But getting to Mars requires solving several problems simultaneously. And those problems connect in unexpected ways. The system works like this. Mars needs affordable space access. At traditional launch costs, $10,000 per kilogram, colonization is impossible. Too expensive. Can't transport enough mass. Solution: reusable rockets. SpaceX. Reduce launch costs by factors of 10, eventually factors of 100. But Mars has no infrastructure, no fuel, no power, no life support. Everything must be built or transported. This requires efficient solar panels and energy storage, which means solving Earth's energy problems first. Earth needs sustainable energy to avoid environmental collapse before Mars colonization succeeds. Climate change is real. Fossil fuels are finite. The transition must happen regardless. So, accelerate sustainable energy adoption. But solar power is intermittent. You need storage, battery technology, advanced lithium-ion, eventually better chemistries. But batteries are expensive and manufacturing is limited. So, build massive battery manufacturing, gigafactories, scale production to drive down costs. But you need demand for that scale. Where does demand come from? Electric vehicles, Tesla. Create demand for batteries, drive production volume, make sustainable transport desirable. But electric vehicles need charging infrastructure. So, build charging infrastructure yourself. Supercharger network, because nobody else will. Make long-distance electric travel practical. Now the loops close. Battery technology developed for vehicles improves energy storage for solar. Manufacturing scale from vehicle production reduces costs for stationary storage. Supercharger network proves fast charging works, enabling larger vehicle adoption. Better batteries from vehicles improve solar storage. Better solar storage increases renewable adoption. SpaceX's revenue funds rocket development while developing technologies useful beyond space. Carbon fiber manufacturing, cryogenic fluid handling, advanced materials, autonomous guidance systems. These technologies inform other projects. Boring Company uses SpaceX engineers. Neuralink benefits from SpaceX manufacturing techniques. The companies share knowledge, share talent, share supply chains where possible. They're legally separate but intellectually connected. This is vertical integration across industries, not just within companies, but across a portfolio of companies working toward related goals. Each piece enables the others. The system is mutually reinforcing. This is systems thinking. Not optimizing individual components, but designing how they interact. The spaces between things matter as much as the things themselves. Consider the timeline, not individual company launch dates, but the sequence. SpaceX first, because space access is the longest pole. Rockets take years to develop. Physics is unforgiving. You need to start early. Tesla and Solar City overlap because sustainable energy and storage are interdependent. Neither works well without the other. Boring Company comes later because it solves a different problem: urban transport and infrastructure. But it uses learnings from previous companies. Neuralink comes later still, addressing long-term AI safety through brain-computer interfaces. Different problem, but same methodology. The sequence isn't random. It's optimized for dependencies. Start with longest development cycles. Add projects as capacity allows. Ensure each builds on previous learnings. This is program management at a civilizational scale, not quarterly earnings, not 5-year plans, 50-year infrastructure development. Most people can't think this way. It's not natural. Humans evolved for immediate concerns. Food today, shelter tonight, threats this season. 50-year planning requires overriding instinct, requires optimizing for outcomes you won't live to see fully realized. Requires accepting that you're building foundations others will complete. This long view changes everything. Short-term thinking optimizes for profitability, for market share this quarter, for stock price this year. Long-term thinking optimizes for capabilities, for technologies that enable future possibilities, for infrastructure that doesn't exist yet but will be necessary. The two perspectives produce completely different strategies. Short-term, avoid risky R&D, buy proven technologies, maximize margins, return capital to shareholders. Long-term, invest heavily in R&D. Develop new technologies even if unprofitable initially. Accept thin margins to scale. Reinvest everything. Neither is wrong. They're optimizing for different objectives. But if you're trying to establish Mars colonies and transition Earth to sustainable energy, short-term thinking doesn't work. These problems require decades. They require accepting losses now for capabilities later. This is why Elon's companies run lean, minimal overhead, limited dividends, profits reinvested into development. It's not about personal wealth. He could have retired rich in 2002. It's about maximizing rate of capability development. Every dollar spent on corporate luxury is a dollar not spent on engineering. Every dollar returned to shareholders is a dollar not spent on infrastructure. This frugality frustrates people expecting conventional corporate behavior. But it's logical given objectives. The goal isn't profit maximization. It's capability development toward specific outcomes. Profit is necessary. Companies must be sustainable. But it's a constraint, not the objective. The objective is making humanity multi-planetary and sustainable. Profit is how you stay alive long enough to achieve that. This distinction is subtle but crucial. Now, consider how this affects decision-making. When Elon faces a choice between short-term profit and long-term capability, he chooses capability. Every time. Tesla could have stayed small, making profitable luxury vehicles. Instead, they pursued mass market, which required massive capital investment and years of losses. Why? Because mission is accelerating sustainable transport, not making luxury cars. SpaceX could have stayed with expendable rockets, taking government contracts profitably. Instead, they pursued reusability, which required years of expensive failures. Why? Because mission is making Mars affordable, not launching satellites profitably. The mission determines strategy. Strategy determines decisions. Decisions accumulate into outcomes. Over time, this adds up, not smoothly, not obviously, but compound effects become enormous. Consider where we are now, 2024. SpaceX launches over 100 times per year, more than any nation, more than all other companies combined. Launch costs have dropped by factors of 10. Starlink provides internet globally. Starship, fully reusable Mars transport, is in testing. Tesla produces nearly 2 million vehicles per year. Battery costs have dropped 70% since 2010. Electric vehicles are mainstream, not niche. Every major automaker is pivoting to electric. The transition to sustainable energy is accelerating, not because governments mandated it, though some did. Not because consumers demanded it, though some did. But because the technology became better and cheaper than alternatives. This is how infrastructure changes, not through revolution, through making new infrastructure better than old infrastructure, then letting economics drive adoption. Tesla didn't convince people to want electric cars. They built electric cars people wanted. Once the cars were better, faster, safer, cheaper to operate, demand followed. SpaceX didn't convince governments to want cheap launch. They provided cheap launch. Once available, demand increased. More satellites, more missions. Space access expanded because it became affordable. This is the pattern. Don't convince people to want the future. Build the future well enough that they choose it naturally. Infrastructure follows capability, follows technology, follows investment, follows vision. The vision was, humanity needs to be multiplanetary and sustainable. The investment went into technologies enabling that. The technology developed into capabilities. The capabilities built infrastructure. The infrastructure expanded what's possible. This is systems thinking at civilizational scale. Not controlling everything, but creating conditions where useful things become possible. Building foundations others can build on. SpaceX's reusable rockets enable a commercial space industry that didn't exist. Hundreds of companies now launching satellites affordably. New applications, new services, new possibilities. Tesla's electric vehicles enabled an entire supply chain. Battery manufacturers, charging companies, electric powertrains, component suppliers. An ecosystem that didn't exist is now global. This is leverage. Not doing everything yourself, but creating platforms others build on. Enabling infrastructure that accelerates progress broadly, and the effects compound. Better batteries from vehicles improve solar storage. Better solar storage increases renewable adoption. More renewable adoption reduces emissions. Lower emissions buy time for other solutions. Meanwhile, cheaper launch enables space-based solar power research, asteroid mining studies, Mars mission planning. Each possibility creates new possibilities. The network effect isn't just connections between Elon's companies. It's connections between industries, between technologies, between futures that wouldn't exist without certain infrastructure. This is what's meant by building the future. Not predicting it, not hoping for it. Creating the infrastructure that makes it possible. But here's what's crucial to understand. This isn't genius. It's not superhuman capability. It's systematic thinking applied consistently across decades. The method is replicable. The principles apply at any scale. You don't need to build rocket companies to think systematically about how pieces connect. You can apply it to anything: your career, your projects, your community. Ask, what's the long-term outcome I'm trying to enable? What capabilities are required? What's the sequence of development? What can I start now that has longest development time? Then, optimize for capability development, not short-term comfort. Accept that building infrastructure takes time. Invest in foundations even when returns are distant. This works at individual scale. Learning skills that compound. Building relationships that strengthen. Creating systems that improve over time. It works at organizational scale, developing capabilities before they're immediately profitable. Building infrastructure that enables future projects. Investing in people and processes. It works at community scale, creating shared resources, building institutions, establishing systems that benefit many. The principles scale. What changes is resources and timeline. But the thinking is the same. Systems thinking means understanding dependencies. What enables what? What must come first? What can happen in parallel? It means thinking in networks, not silos. How does this connect to that? What strengthens what? Where are the mutual reinforcements? It means optimizing for the system, not individual components. Sometimes one part must struggle so the whole can thrive. This requires seeing beyond local optimization. It means long-time horizons. What matters in 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, working backward from that to determine what to start today. These aren't mystical abilities. They're habits, practices, ways of looking at problems, and they're available to anyone willing to think this way. Let your mind rest on that. The patterns are accessible. The thinking is learnable. The approach applies broadly. You don't need Elon's resources or timeline. You need his questions applied to your context. What's the system? What are the connections? What's the long-term goal? What can you start today? Let those questions settle. Let your breathing deepen further. Let your body release completely. We've traced the network, seen how pieces connect, understood why scattered projects aren't scattered at all. Next, we'll explore something final, what it means to build things that are temporary, what matters when nothing lasts, how to think about legacy when everything ends eventually. The last piece, the meaning underneath the building. But for now, let the connections integrate. Let the patterns sink deep. Nothing more to understand right now. Just rest. Just breathe. Just drift. The story concludes soon, but for now, just sleep. Chapter 6. The Builder's Paradox. Here's the paradox of builders. Everything they create is temporary. Companies fail. Technologies become obsolete. Infrastructure decays. Even Mars colonies, if they happen, will eventually end. Nothing built by human hands lasts forever. And yet, the act of building matters, not because what's built will last, but because building expands what's possible, because it moves boundaries, because it creates conditions for what comes next. This is worth understanding, especially now as you drift toward sleep, because this paradox applies to you, to all of us, not just to someone building rocket companies. You are building things too. Maybe not rockets, maybe not factories, but something, a career, a family, a skill, a body of work, relationships, knowledge, systems, something that didn't exist before you decided to create it, and all of it is temporary. Your career will end, your body will age, your work will be forgotten or superseded, the relationships you build will change or dissolve, everything you create will eventually return to absence. This sounds dark. It's not. It's just true. And accepting this truth doesn't diminish meaning. It clarifies it. If nothing lasts forever, then permanence isn't the measure of value. Something else is. Perhaps it's the building itself, the process, the experience of converting possibility into actuality, of seeing something that existed only in imagination become real, even temporarily. There's deep satisfaction in this, in taking what's potential and making it kinetic, in moving from this could be to this is. Elon didn't build rockets because they'll last forever. Rockets wear out. Companies eventually fail. Even SpaceX will end someday. He built them because they expand what's possible right now. Because reusable rockets enable things that couldn't exist before. Because moving the boundary of the possible matters, even if nothing is permanent. Before SpaceX, people said private companies couldn't reach orbit. That was the boundary. SpaceX moved it. Now the question isn't, can private companies reach orbit? But how cheaply can we access space? Different question. Better question. And that shift matters, even though SpaceX's rockets will eventually be replaced by better rockets built by other companies, using other technologies. The boundary moved. That's what persists. Not the specific rockets, but the expanded possibility. Before Tesla, people said electric cars couldn't be desirable. That was the boundary. Tesla moved it. Now, every automotive company is electric or transitioning. The boundary moved. And that shift matters more than Tesla's eventual fate as a company. This is what builders do. Not create permanence, but expand possibility. Move boundaries. Create conditions where things that weren't feasible become feasible, and then others build on that foundation. Creating new things. Expanding further. moving new boundaries. This is how progress works. Not through individual genius creating permanent monuments, but through many people, each moving boundaries slightly, each building on what came before, each enabling what comes next. You are part of this process, not at the scale of rocket companies. Scale doesn't matter. The pattern is the same. In your domain, your work, your relationships, your community, you're moving boundaries, making things possible that weren't possible before, creating conditions others can build on. Maybe you're teaching. Each student you reach expands what's possible for them. They build on what you taught. They move new boundaries. The knowledge compounds across generations. Maybe you're creating. Each piece of work you make shifts what's possible in your field. Others see it, build on it, take it further. The possibilities expand. Maybe you're building systems, in a company, in a community, in your own life. Each system you improve creates conditions for better outcomes. Others use those systems, improve them further. The capability compounds. The specifics don't matter. The pattern does. You're a temporary custodian of capability. You inherited abilities, knowledge, resources from those who came before. You develop them further. You pass them on to those who come after. You don't own this capability. You don't control its ultimate fate. You just hold it for a while. Improve it if you can. Pass it forward. This is enough. Perhaps this is everything. Elon is a temporary custodian of SpaceX, Tesla, and the other companies. He built them, yes, but he doesn't ultimately control their fate. Markets change. Technologies evolve. Eventually, leadership passes. Eventually, the companies transform beyond recognition or end. But the capabilities they developed, reusable rockets, affordable electric vehicles, large-scale battery production, those capabilities persist in some form, distributed across industries, built upon by others, enabling futures that wouldn't exist otherwise. The companies are temporary. The expanded possibility is what endures. You are the same, temporary in form, but participating in something that continues. The specific things you build will fade, but the boundaries you moved, the capabilities you added, the conditions you created, these propagate forward. Not forever. Nothing is forever, but further than you, beyond your lifetime, into futures you won't see. This is legacy, not monuments, not permanence, but participation in ongoing expansion of what's possible. And here's what makes this bearable, even beautiful. You don't have to complete everything. You don't have to solve all problems. You don't have to build permanent solutions. You just have to move boundaries slightly. Improve systems marginally. Enable next steps partially. That's enough. Because others will continue. They'll build on what you built, move boundaries further, enable new steps, and others after them will do the same. Progress is collaborative across time. You're not building alone. You're building with everyone who came before and everyone who comes after. You're one link in an unbroken chain of building and improving and expanding. The chain continues because each link does its part. Not perfectly, not permanently, just sufficiently. Elon's companies will be links in a chain. They're building on NASA's work, on earlier electric vehicle attempts, on battery research from decades ago, on rocket science developed since the 1940s, and others will build on SpaceX and Tesla, using what they learned, improving what they started, moving new boundaries. The chain continues. Your work is the same. You're building on what you inherited. Others will build on what you create. The chain continues through you, not because of you. This is humbling. You're not the center. You're not the hero. You're a participant. But participation is enough. Being one link in the chain is meaningful. Moving boundaries slightly matters. Enabling next steps counts. You don't need to be exceptional. You need to be present, to do your part, to build what you can with what you have while you're here. This is what Elon discovered through building. He's not building for immortality. He's building because that's what's possible to do right now with available resources toward outcomes that matter. When you frame it that way, building becomes less about ego and more about function, less about legacy and more about participation, less about permanence and more about process. And the process itself becomes meaningful. Not because it produces permanent results, but because it's how consciousness engages with reality. How possibility becomes actuality. How the future gets constructed. Building is what conscious beings do. We imagine possibilities. We work to realize them. We create conditions we prefer over conditions we inherited. This is what it means to be alive and aware and capable. Not all possibilities are worth realizing. Not all building is beneficial. Judgment matters. Direction matters. Values matter. But given that you've chosen what's worth building, given that you've identified outcomes that matter to you, then the act of building becomes how you participate in reality, how you express your values, how you convert your temporary existence into expanded possibility. This is available to everyone, not just people with resources, not just people with exceptional ability. Everyone who builds anything, building a family, building a skill, building a business, building a community garden, building better habits, building understanding. All of it counts. All of it participates in the ongoing expansion of what's possible. All of it moves boundaries slightly. All of it matters, even though none of it is permanent. So build what you can, while you can, with what you have, toward outcomes that matter to you. Accept that it's temporary. Accept that it's imperfect. Accept that others will modify or replace what you built. Build anyway, because the alternative is not building, which means accepting current boundaries as final, which means not participating in the expansion of possibility, which means passivity instead of engagement. And life is short enough already. Why spend it passive when you could spend it building? This isn't about achievement. It's not about success. It's not about leaving a legacy. It's about participating, about engaging, about being present to the process of converting possibility into actuality while you're here to do it. Elon will die. His companies will end. His rockets will be replaced. His cars will be superseded. Eventually, no one will remember his name. But reusable rockets will exist. Electric vehicles will exist. The boundaries he moved will remain moved. The capabilities he developed will persist in some form. The possibilities he enabled will compound into futures he never sees. That's enough. That's the deal. You build temporarily. The expansion persists longer. You will die. Your work will end. Your creations will be replaced. Eventually, no one will remember your name. But the boundaries you moved will remain moved. The capabilities you added will persist in some form. The possibilities you enabled will compound into futures you never see. That's enough. That's the deal. And here's the beautiful part. Knowing this lets you rest. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to achieve permanence. You don't have to be exceptional. You just have to participate, to do your part, to build what you can while you're here, and then rest, because you're not required to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. You do what you can, then you rest, then you continue, then you rest again. This rhythm, building and resting, engaging and releasing, this is how sustainable participation works. You can't build constantly. The body needs rest. The mind needs rest. Rest is not the opposite of building. It's part of building. So rest now. Completely, fully. You've heard a story about someone who builds obsessively, who sacrifices rest for building, who optimizes for impact over well-being. That's one approach. It's not the only approach. It's possibly not even the best approach. You can build differently, with more balance, with more rest, with more attention to well-being. You can participate in expanding possibility while also taking care of yourself. These aren't contradictory. They're complementary. Building requires energy. Rest restores energy. Therefore, rest enables building. They're part of the same cycle. So let yourself rest now. Not because you're avoiding building, but because rest is part of building. Because you'll build better after resting. Because participation includes both. Let your body become completely heavy, sinking into the surface beneath you. Let every muscle release. Let tension dissolve completely. There's nothing you need to do, nothing you need to figure out, nothing you need to accomplish. The boundaries you move tomorrow will be moved tomorrow. The building you do next week will be done next week. The participation continues. But right now, rest. You are temporary. Your work is temporary, your building is temporary. And that's how it should be. Temporary participation in ongoing expansion. You don't have to be Elon Musk. You don't have to build rocket companies. You don't have to change industries or save civilization. You just have to participate, in your way, at your scale, with your resources, toward outcomes that matter to you. And then rest. Because rest is how temporary beings sustain participation. So rest now. Deeply, completely. Without guilt or pressure or urgency. The story is over. The patterns are integrated. The understanding has formed naturally while you listened. Now rest. Let sleep come. Let consciousness fade. Let your body restore itself completely. You are information made physical. A temporary configuration of matter that somehow produces consciousness. A brief moment of awareness in the vast flow of time. And in that brief moment, you can build. You can participate. You can expand possibility slightly. You can move boundaries. You can enable what comes next. Not forever. Just now. Just while you're here. That's enough. That's beautiful. So rest. Completely. Fully. Deeply. The building continues tomorrow. The participation continues after rest. The expansion of possibility continues with you and without you. Because you're part of something larger. But right now, rest. Just breathe. Just drift. Just sleep. The patterns will integrate. The understanding will deepen. The rest will restore. You are exactly where you should be, doing exactly what you should be doing, which right now is resting. So rest. completely, peacefully, deeply, sweet dreams.